Hey, class, this is Art 100. I am your teacher, Professor Peter Anderson. Really looking forward to teaching this course. I think it's the fourth or fifth time I've done this class. It's going to be art and world cultures, and obviously it's an online class, and it's going to be an art class as well. So we're going to go over today. We're just going to go over the syllabus, and I want to kind of tell you guys what to expect in this course, and also just to kind of encourage you on how you need to study for the course as well. So the first thing is since it's an online course, it's going to be pretty busy. You really want to make sure that you're doing a little bit of work every single day. Um, Also, the fact that it's art, I'm going to try the best I can. I'm talking to the IT facility right now. I'm trying to get to the point where I could do a lot of these lectures where you could just kind of see the slides on the lectures. That's what I'm kind of hoping for, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that or not. But you should have a pretty good illustrative book that's going to give you a lot of examples, and I'm going to try to make some of these lectures as comprehensive as possible, but they're not going to be too long just because it requires a lot of reading and writing. So the class, excuse me, is going to, if you have your syllabus, you guys should have your syllabus out. It's going to be looking at a number of artistic traditions. We're also going to be looking at a lot of classical and contemporary practices from an artistic worldview. In other words, this class is going to be run kind of like a history course. Also, we're going to be looking at some of the philosophy, some of the worldview of some of the artists. The primary assumption when you're studying art, whenever somebody says that, it feels like, what are you doing? Are you just like, are you studying how to draw? Not necessarily. I'm not a very good artist at all when it comes to that, in that regard. But you could still have a in-depth comprehension of art and art history if you understand a lot of the philosophy behind it. I remember one time saw a Rodin exhibit in PVD Essex Museum, and just teaching this course and understanding a lot of this course, there was this one statue where Rodin had Adam, and Adam, of course, is in the biblical history is the first man, and Adam was pointing down with his right hand, and then pointing up with his other hand. And you would see when you're just kind of looking at it, if you've never taken art history, or if you're just kind of looking at a piece, you're not really sure what to expect. You're just kind of looking at it, looks pretty. What this class is going to help you to do is what is the history of Rodin and who is Adam? And so I was with a friend at PVD Essex, and she was just kind of getting into art. And I told her the history of this piece, and I said Rodin, what he was doing is exhibiting with the downward hand in the story of Genesis. Adam is looking at how he was cast away in the garden, and the upward hand is that one day he may see God's promise. She was like, whoa, I didn't realize that. And Rodin was also right in the middle of 18th and 20th century, and he felt that tension between the earth and also heaven above. So, that was a quick, really, really quick. I just met you guys, but that's kind of what we're going to be studying in this course. We're going to be looking at pieces. We're going to be looking at whether it's statues, whether it's architecture, whether it is paintings, and I want to be able to give you guys somewhat of a history, as well as of a comprehension, or help you comprehend the pieces that you're looking at. Art is it's not. Art has been used and integrated in our culture since the dawn of time, even though we don't necessarily go to museums as much as we used to, even though many people still do. There's still plenty of endowments for Museum of Fine Arts in Boston or the PVD Essex in Salem. Art is, you could turn on your television right now and you could look at Netflix, and art, that's art. That's art through visual media. You can turn on your iPad and you can see the beauty of the design. That right there is a certain kind of psychology, as well as with art, where they bring the two together so that whatever appeals to your brain. We're minimalists, and we like things that are minimal, and we like things that are simple. So when you turn on your iPad, for example, everything is kind of in order, and it's somewhat beautiful as well, and it actually makes you want to look at the piece even longer. So whatever it is, you are constantly surrounded by art. This is a very important class. The only thing that what we don't often realize is that we don't necessarily see what the art is trying to convey or what it's saying to us. So what I'm hoping from this class at the end of the semester, at the end of the 5 or 6 weeks, you'd be able to have a little bit of a comprehension of what's around you, or what's surrounding you, whether it's in social media, whether it's in paintings, whether it's through visual arts or drama or play or music. You at least kind of know somewhat. You have certain questions that you may be wanting to ask. So I want to get you all a little bit more self-aware of the things that you're walking into. And that's really is the point of education, really, is to get you a little bit more mindful and not so easily influenced or so easily reactive toward whether you're interacting with particular cultures or whether you're talking to other people. Hopefully through this educational experience, you're going to be a little bit more informed on the symbols and the cultural symbols and that are being expressed. And you know, I kind of like that. One of the reasons that always drove me to education is that I always kind of felt like in the beginning, before I went to college, there was a few years where I didn't go to college. I just kind of took some gap years. I felt somewhat like a sheep. I felt a little out of place. I felt like I was a sheep in the sense like I was just hearing people from work and they would just kind of espouse ideas, or I would be reading a book. And I didn't really know. I knew that something beautiful was going on, or I knew that some idea seemed kind of flawed, or some idea seemed really good, but I couldn't really necessarily tell you at that time, when I was about 21, 22, on why I necessarily thought this idea was good, or thought this idea was bad, or thought why this painting was aesthetically pleasing, or why this painting was not, or why this television show was something that I was drawn to, or versus this other television show that I thought was very dull. I couldn't have communicated to you at that time why I felt those things. And what education does is that it gives you the ability to communicate these things. So you go from, being a little bit more, I guess, passive to a little bit more active. And that's really the whole point of education. It helps you become more of a citizen. And, I'm hoping as reading the syllabus right now, I'm going to read the syllabus right now, is that you're going to gain an understanding about the intellectual and emotional context of aesthetic diversity. The first thing, I know it says attendance, not a class assignments. I apologize for that. In other words, since it's an online course, I just want you all to please contribute as much as you can in these class discussions. That's kind of like your online class, so not to confuse you. But, I take very seriously how much effort you display throughout the coursework. I've been teaching here for about 5 years at Endicott College for about 5 years, and I reward a particular type of student. And the type of student that I reward most are the students that display a significant amount of willingness to learn, display a lot of interaction in the material, and those students, the students who actively discuss on the board, they try as hard as they can in the journal. I look at those students, and those students have always passed all my courses. The students that have not passed my course, and there's only been a few, and I kind of narrowed them down to just a type of student that often doesn't pass my course. And the type of student that often doesn't pass my course are students that overly rely on just taking tests and don't do any of the work. I've never passed a student that just are very good test takers, for example, but they're either not active, or they don't discuss, they don't turn in their journals on time. And what they do, unfortunately, they build a really kind of a very poor habit. Maybe they picked up from high school or whatever it may be, and then they go in the college course and they take a college course and they think that I could just do the very same thing. I've never passed a student that just relies on test scores. And if that is where you are right now, I would just really encourage you not to bring that habit in this classroom, because you won't pass. And I don't want you to waste your money. I just don't want you to waste your time. I look at education, as far as why you're in school. I would just encourage you, if you're a student, just to take that as seriously as you possibly can. And it's a very existential question. I'm not trying to be preachy here, but really ask, why am I spending $5,000, $3,000 a class if I don't necessarily want to be here? And if you don't want to be here, like I told one student, then that's fine. Go figure stuff out. There's plenty of trades. I have a good friend who's an electrician. He makes probably about $180,000 a year. He has no desire to go to college. And he makes much more money than my therapist friends who are working at agencies. So I would just encourage you, if you don't want to do the work, really ask these questions just for yourself, whether or not you really want school, and if not, that's fine. But unfortunately, don't, if you're coming not wanting to do the work, you likely won't pass. However, if you do want to, if you're not a great test taker, and or if you struggle a lot with writing, but you display a significant amount of effort, you're going to do okay. Okay, I'm going to help you out. So let's just kind of look at what I expect every week. So in each section, I just decided to say section so I don't have to constantly be changing dates. You basically want to write me a journal and a discussion and a quiz. And that's going to be every single week, a journal, discussion, and quiz. So for the journal, what I would really like you to do is to basically, you have this giant book right here by Cunningham and Reich. And what's likely best for, what's always going to help you with a journal is to describe what the author is conveying in the material in your own words. And I'm not looking for first person language in the sense of, what I think versus what I think over here, and that kind of language. What I'm looking for is a description of what the author is saying. But in your own words, in the sense that it's your language. It's you are telling me what where the author is going. Say, for example, in chapter 2, or in chapter 3, or in chapters 5 and 6, when they're talking about cultural Christianity. What's the main point? You don't have to necessarily summarize the whole chapter per se. I'm not looking for that because they're very, very dense at times, and they're very comprehensive. But what I am looking for is a general summary. The author, what is he addressing? And what is the author often, what Cunningham often does is that he tells you basically what the philosophy, say, for example, of Christianity is, or Islam. And talk to me a little bit about that philosophy in the first paragraph or so. And then afterwards, pick a painting. Pick 2 paintings and just kind of talk about how the author is presenting it, and then at the end of the journal, tell me what your own personal take is on that journal. That's where you can use a first person singular. So the journal is really a description that you're reading the material. The discussion, again, the more in depth you are with these discussions, the better for you. So try to stay away from just 1 to 2 sentence responses. That's going to give you a very poor grade. What I would like is for you to really discuss with other students, to discuss amongst yourselves, to talk a lot about what you're learning. Bring in the book, bring in other materials, other references. I mean, really discuss. It needs to be a discussion. If you're going in there and just writing 1 response, that's likely, I'm not going to necessarily count that for you. So the grammar doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, if anything, I remember having one student there at times in their discussion, their grammar was quite awful at times, but they gave me paragraph after paragraph. They're really engaging in all the students, and they got an A in all the discussions. And then finally, the quiz. The quiz is just really comparing and contrasting 2 different pieces. Usually it's going to be 2 different pieces, and I want you to compare and contrast and just kind of discuss that. And everything's going to be turned in on Canvas. And I believe what I have is that everything will be turned in on Sunday nights. And if I'm not mistaken, so you want to make sure that every Sunday you turn things in. That just gives you some time. I do, provide a few days. I understand on Tuesday. I think that Tuesday is going to be your last day, but there will be somewhat of a penalty if you turn it in on like Monday or Tuesday. You could the required textbook is this one right here by Cunningham. From now on, I'm just going to say CV. It's Cultural Values. It does a really good job talking about the philosophy, talking about the history, so he doesn't just talk about paintings per se. He gives you a significant amount of literature. It's really a really well done book that has plenty of resources, has great illustrations. I've always appreciated this book. I mean, I'm not always a fan of textbooks, actually. I've gotten away from a lot of textbooks and had a lot of my students just read the actual source material. But this is one of those textbooks that I really appreciate and like. And then finally, there's going to be a final paper. And the final paper is going to be about I want it to be at least 7 to 8 pages long. I know in the syllabus it says 5. That's only if you're a very, very, very good writer and you're extremely dense. but you want to dense in the good way, in the sense that you can really compact your words. There are very few people that have that ability to write that well at this phase, and that's so. I would like you to give me a good a paper needs to be something that's not just covered in your book, but what I would encourage you to do is go to a museum, especially now if you're from out of town, that be maybe a little bit more difficult, but you want to have about about 5 to 6 resources that cover your particular. I know in here it says argument. It's more of a painting that you're wanting to look at. I give you guys a little bit more some rules that you're wanting to do or wanting to apply, excuse me, in your paper. Being clear, being human, and I'll actually describe a little bit more what I'm looking for in that paper. But the paper is going to be a description of something that you've covered in the book. It could be music in the papal court. It could be the Renaissance humanism, whatever it is, and you want to tell me a lot. You want to talk to me about certain paintings or music that describe those that worldview or that philosophy. So this course is going to be diverse in the sense that we're going to be looking at a lot of paintings, but that's not all we'll be doing. We'll also be learning a lot about philosophy. We'll be learning about ethics. We'll be learning a little bit about literature. So it's very comprehensive. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up with all the material. Make sure that you're getting in your assignments on time. Make sure that you're reading a lot, because the book is going to be very helpful, especially for your journal. And just when you're discussing, offer as much material as you possibly can. Again, it doesn't have to be pages after pages, but just I need to see that you all are discussing with your classmates. So I look forward to having all of you. Feel free to text me. I have left my number on the syllabus. Feel free to contact me that way or email. And I'll try to get back with you within the 24-hour period as soon as possible. But I look forward to having all of you in my class. This is great. Thanks.